Welcome. We're talking about agreements in this video. And if you are dealing with sellers or trying to get funding for buying property, this is the agreements section. So we're going to walk you through and how this works. Now separately, you're going to be downloaded all these agreements, but this is how it's categorized and organized. Ready? Okay. The first one we have is purchase and sale agreements. And this is where you just buy for cash. And you could be doing it with a JV partner or whatever, but purchase and sale agreements, you're going to have a standard purchase and sale agreement, memorandum of agreement, and lead-based paint disclosure. Now, if you're doing a wholesale flip, you're going to need a couple of other agreements. You're going to need an assignment of agreement, and then HUD-1 settlement when you buy and when you sell, and authorization to release loan information application status. When you're dealing with a rehab, also you're going to be dealing with a contractor agreement when you deal with your builders, an addendum to the listing agreement when you sell the property, and authorization to release loan application status. Getting into seller financing, we're going to have a couple of different boxes. There's been rules that have changed since January of 2004, and we want to make sure that we have the right agreements. The subsections are contracts for deed, agreements for deed, land contracts, and seller financing. Lease options when you buy and when you sell. Subject to is where you get the deed and leave the loan in place. And wraparound mortgage, where you leave the loan in place and wrap around a brand new mortgage. These two are very similar. So let's get into the seller financing. Contract for deed, what do you need for that? Well, the contract for deed is a form of seller financing, and every document you need to do is included. You have the basic agreement for deed, land contract agreement, then authorization to release mortgage information, collection account agreement, and the insurance letter. Lease options, there's two different boxes. One, lease options when you sell, and it's generally you're going to sell on rent to own. When you buy on rent to own, they're a little bit different. Let's look at the selling. When you sell on rent to own, we're going to deal with lease option assignments or sandwich lease options. So you have a lease agreement, tenant's purchase option, repair addendum with loan, repair addendum without loan, tenant's lease deposit receipt, receipt for tenant's non-refundable option fee, authorization to release loan application status, option release document, and notice to release option recorded. So that's when you are selling on rent to own. When you are buying on rent to own, you're basically doing some kind of lease purchase with the seller. When you're buying under a lease option, these agreements specially worded to protect you as the buyer. So we have a lease option agreement, collection account agreement, lease option deposit receipt, insurance letter, notice to renew lease option, and notice to exercise purchase option. Now, when we get into wraps, wraparound mortgage is where you use mortgage documents. You're going to have a standard FNMA mortgage document and note that are used by most title companies. So you have a mortgage document, a mortgage note document, and a wraparound mortgage rider. So lastly is the subject to documentation. Subject to has to do where you take over an owner's property subject to the existing loan and keeping it in place. So you're going to have an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement, the quitclaim deed to trustee, the authorization to release mortgage information, limited power of attorney regarding real estate, insurance letter, escrow letter, and letter to mortgage lien holder. So that ends the seller financing box. Agreement for deed, contract for deed, lease options when you buy and sell, wraps, and subject to. A straight option. Straight option is to take control of nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no money or credit using these agreements. Use a standard option, agreement, and notice to exercise option. Let's get into JV partners. JV partners, partnership agreements, standard agreements for forming joint ventures and limited partnerships for JV partners, where you use partnership agreements, standard agreements for forming joint ventures and limited partnerships for investing in real estate. So we have a joint venture agreement and a limited partnership agreement. You will need an attorney for these to double check everything, but we give you the boilerplates. Land trusts. Land trust agreements that protect your assets and have more flexibility when partnering or transferring real estate using land trusts. Everything you need is included. So we have the basic land trust agreement, then a warranty deed to the trustee, beneficiaries agreement, an assignment of beneficial interest is where how you transfer interest, letter of direction to the trustee where you're telling the trustee what to do, notice of resignation of trustee, notice of termination of trustee, affidavit of resignation and appointment of successor trustee, and trustee's affidavit. Landlord-tenant basic property management, every agreement you need. We have rental application, application denial letter, standard lease, deposit receipt, move-out form, move-in form, itemized security deposit deductions form, prepayment rent discount form, and notice of past due rent. Private first mortgage, it's a seller-held first or second mortgage. Also contains standard FNMA mortgage and note that are used for most title companies. So you have a mortgage note, wraparound mortgage rider. Now credit repair, I highly recommend you use our in-house tenant buyer credit repair company, but we do give you forms that you can use to do it yourself. How to get a copy of your credit report, credit bureau contact information, how to check all three credit bureaus, contents of your credit report, things that affect your credit score, disputing things off your credit, disputing inaccuracies, removing old information, follow up after 30 days, paying things off your credit, dealing with charge-offs, paying off overdue accounts in a lump sum, making payments as a payoff, things to know when negotiating, past bankruptcies, defaulted student loans, how to build stronger credit, strengthening your current credit references, adding information to your credit report, establishing new credit, avoiding future credit problems. And here are the letters to the credit bureau. First one is how to request a copy of your credit report, letter to dispute information on the report, letter to remove old information, letter to remove spouse's information, letter to remove unauthorized inquiries, letter follow up 30 days after the dispute, and letter to add account information. Now, we also include some letters to creditors. A letter to report the spouse's information, a letter to dispute credit card charge, a letter to dispute information on account, a letter to dispute amount owed, a letter to negotiate payment of charge-off, letter of payment of charge-off at a discount, and complaint letter to the federal or state agency. So that gives you an education of credit repair, but we highly recommend you use our service because it's just easier, and you really have to pay attention to this stuff when you improve credit reports, especially with um, it's so important when you get tenant buyers to get their credit higher so that your sellers can be happy that they get their house sold. All right, so just as a recap, we went over all the agreements, and it's purchase and sale agreements, wholesaling agreements, rehabs, seller financing, which includes contract for deed, lease options, wraps, subject to, then it's straight option, JV partners and partnerships and limited partnerships, land trusts, landlord-tenant management, private first mortgage, and credit repair. Thanks so much for listening to this particular recording on what agreements do we use. Thanks again. Bye-bye.